All right, thanks for joining everybody. This is Mark Gold with American Home Recovery Fund, and I'm going to ask you guys to hold your questions until the end of the presentation. We've got a lot of ground to cover, and again, thanks for joining us and here to find out about the opportunities in the Midwest on real estate investing and different strategies that we're incorporating as a private equity fund to really take advantage of the market out there. And again, it's all about taking advantage of the opportunities when they're out there. So this is going to go for probably about 45 to 60 minutes. We'll open it up to questions at the end. So just log your questions in as you're going. I'm not even going to be able to see them until the end of the presentation. So just log them in there, and then I'll go through them, as quickly and expeditiously as possible when we're done. So again, what we call this is full contact note investing. What we do as a private equity fund is a little bit different than most, and we'll go through what those differences are. So a little bit about me. Again, my background is about 25 years as a mortgage banker. I'm proud to say that I helped create a lot of these opportunities that we're all taking advantage of right now. So operated a pretty large mortgage and real estate company based out of California. Been a licensed real estate broker since 1996 and been a direct lender in 26 states throughout the years. But done over 20,000 transactions, and that's not just to put out a big number. It's just to kind of let you guys know I know the paper side of the business, which is where these opportunities are, and this is what we're really talking about in the market today. Also a co-founder of the American Home Recovery Fund. Again, we're a series of private equity funds operating in the distressed debt space for about the last 3 years total. I've been in the distressed side about 4 years. And we've been enjoying great returns for our investors, as well as helping to keep homeowners in the homes, which is true to heart what we're really out there trying to do. Also, a bus driver of the Roadshow. We'll talk a little bit at the end of the presentation about what the Roadshow is and how that's really taking investors to the next level in this non-performing note space. Also, a very proud veteran of America's Navy. Big shout out. I know we got some veterans on the line here. Shout out and thanks for your guys' service. By the way, that's a picture of me with hair way back when. So always like just throwing that in. A couple of people thought I never had hair, but yep, I did at some point. All right. So again, the opportunity today, and we kind of call this the Wild West of notes. Loan origination or note origination has been around a very, very long time. But when the market blew up in 2008, 2009, it really opened up this whole opportunity for people getting into the business that really, quite frankly, didn't know much about the business. And again, it's for the most part unregulated, which is both good and bad. And we'll discuss a couple of different sides of both sides of that story here shortly. But again, you just got to watch out. We got sheriffs and we got my buddy Scott out there lurking in the shadows as well. Shout out to Scott. We were together in Chicago this past weekend doing his No Buying for Dummies workshop. And again, he's one of the top trainers in the business, and we do a lot of stuff together. And you'll see his name and face throughout the presentation as well. What we're going to cover today, and apologize if I talk too quick. We are recording this, so you will be able to refer back to it. But there is so much to cover, and again, I want to get through as much content as I can for you guys to really deliver as much value as we can for you, generously giving us your time this afternoon. So we're going to cover today's opportunity in distressed paper. We're going to talk about some real case studies that we've experienced and some real success stories from ourselves and some of our peer groups. You're going to find out about opportunities in the out of your comfort zone markets, which we'll talk a little bit more about. We're going to talk a little bit about our roadshow, and we're going to give you one amazing takeaway. I'm serious; it is an amazing takeaway, especially if you're playing in this space right now. And we're going to tell you where you can get free houses. Everybody, raise your hand if you want to see where you can get free houses. Yeah, I figure everybody's hands up there. All right, so getting right into it. We've all seen this saying from Nike. When we started, we're running two pretty sizable funds right now, but it started with my two business partners and myself buying our first three notes for a total of $25,000. Even with my vast experience in the mortgage origination side, I didn't know anything about the distress side when we started. But at the end of the day, take your education, learn as much as you can about what you're getting into, and then just do it. That you start. You learn as you go along in this business. You don't have to. This isn't brain surgery. You don't need to know every component of the brain before you go in there, like you would if you were a brain surgeon. It's real estate. We're buying real estate, and at the end of the day, when you're buying paper, there's two important factors that you need to be comfortable with. You need to, one, be comfortable with the value, and two, be comfortable with the title. What's affecting the title? What do you have to worry about if you're buying senior first mortgage liens? Then you're sitting in the driver's seat on that, but just know what's behind you in case you need to deal with anything as far as through a deed in lieu of foreclosure or anything of that nature. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But at the end of the day, it just takes one to get started, guys. No matter what your aspirations are, no matter how much money you're playing with, whether you're playing with $5,000 or $500,000 or $5 million, it takes one to get started and move down the road. That's kind of the importance of what I wanted to convey there. Distressed debt. What is your model? That's the first thing you need to figure out. There's a lot of different ways to go in this. If you're investing in traditional real estate, you have pretty much three exit strategies. You're going to A, live in the house. You're going to B, fix and flip it, or C, you're going to rent it. Right? In distressed debt, we've got a dozen different ways we can go. My model with the fund is cash flow. We're after cash flow, so we're the guys that want to buy the owner-occupied non-performing notes and give that homeowner a second chance and get them reperforming so we can start getting that nice cash on cash return, which I'll give you some examples of that later on. You may be getting the properties for fix and flips. Nothing wrong with that. Again, our model is, with a knight in white shining armor, we're out there trying to help save Americans one at a time. But your model might be to go out there, get the properties, foreclose on them, and get them to do fix and flips and fixing those properties up. Nothing wrong with that, but not, again, to each his own. Different models will be for different people. You might be wanting to get the properties for landlording. There's probably the most real estate experience in the market right now are the folks who have been buying, properties over the past, umpteen years and turning them into rental properties. It might be a rent-own model. We've started another fund where we're going specifically after that model. We're buying REOs from the banks, and we're turning around and doing rehabs, and then turning them into rent-owns. Great, and again, another great opportunity to help a segment of the market that maybe lost their home through the meltdown, and now we'll help them get back on their feet through that. So a lot of different ways you can go with this. What is the real opportunity out there today? Right now, there's less than 400,000 REO assets, and again, let me get just a little bit more basic. REO is real estate owned. So those are the loans, those are the properties where the banks have foreclosed on the property through an auction or some other mechanism, and now they own that real estate. And banks are not set up to own real estate. They're set up to take that real estate, sell it to the local investors that are going to do whatever with that property. So there's less than 400,000 of those, and while that might sound like a big number, at the height of the disaster, 2009, there were about 4 million REO properties on the marketplace, throughout time there. So again, not a lot of REO out there. So what that means is less real estate opportunities for a lot of folks out there. Conversely, there's over 4.5 million plus delinquent mortgages out there. That's what we call the shadow inventory. That number, the reason we have a plus is because the foreclosure starts are on the upswing again in a lot of states. California, Florida, Midwest has been holding pretty much steady, but some of the areas that appreciated greatly are starting to see those blips in the market again. So 12 months ago, there were 9 million delinquent mortgages. Delinquent mortgage we classify as a mortgage loan that's 90 days or greater past due. So that's what we're considering that. We've seen the banks make a massive move from selling REOs to selling paper. Less liability to lawsuits. You can't. Over the past couple of years, every time you went on, Yahoo News or turned on the TV or looked in a newspaper, Ocwen or B of A or Chase was getting hit with $1 billion, $10 billion, $16 billion with a B dollar fines because of robo-signing, improper foreclosures, all these various things that they've created shortcuts for over the years that led them to pretty much a bloodbath. So from the bank's perspective, actually, let's take it back. From the investor's perspective, a lot of people, when they hear about being able to buy these mortgage notes for, 10 to 50 cents on the dollar, they say that's smoke and mirrors. That's BS. Why would a bank sell a loan for that kind of a discount? Well, the answer is they're not selling it for a discount. They're selling the liability. They're not selling the asset. That's one less loan that's in default that they have to get a black eye completing that foreclosure, kicking another homeowner out of their home, or having to pay another fine, having that property getting thrown into the mix on where they're going to pay a massive fine. So we've seen the banks become a lot more willing and able. And by banks, I also mean, we're starting to see Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae to start selling their non-performing notes as well. So this is a food chain that's been going and continues to go as the market heals itself. And there's still, as you can see, still a lot of healing that needs to happen. Continuing the opportunity, again, we're going to talk specifically about the Midwest today. Over 80% of what we buy is in the Midwest states. We love Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio. Those 4 states represent some of the best ROIs or return on investments that we've ever seen ever. So we concentrate in there. Chicago has had over 40,000 dwellings that have been demolished. I was just there, literally came back yesterday, and we went spending a day driving around looking at some of these assets again. Chicago, third largest city in the country. While there are certainly bad areas, there's still great areas, and we're starting to see demolished properties in good areas too. Again, what that's created because of the size of the city, the population that used to live in those 40,000 dwellings, they didn't leave the state. They moved in with family members, with friends, neighbors, as they were displaced homeowners. So, what opportunity does that create? That creates the opportunity to buy a property or build a property, and in a very thriving rental market. We've picked up properties over there for as little as $20,000 a door. That's $80,000 for a 4-unit building that might rent for $1,500 per door. That's $6,000 a month, or almost $70,000 a year in rents. Your break evens in less than 2 years. So those are the kind of opportunities, and those are the kind of cap rates that we're commonly seeing in these specific marketplaces. Indianapolis has consistently in the past 5 years been in the top 5 real estate investment markets. Great economy, big sports town, thriving downtown, big population, and just low price points, high value. So again, these are the things you look for where you want to be investing. Lower price points to enter. Again, we talk about, and depending on, we have people on here from all over the country. We talk about $50,000 houses, value houses. Out here in Southern California, where I am, trying to talk to a real estate investor about investing in our fund, that was one of the biggest challenges I had, because out here, you can't put a roof on a house, some of these homes, for $50,000. And here I am trying to explain to these people what a $50,000 house in Indianapolis is, which might be, 1,600, 1,800 square feet, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath. That's a house. People live in that. Good people live in that. So again, when we're buying a $50,000 house for maybe $10,000, or buying the note rather for $10,000, and maybe the homeowner owed $100,000 on that, that's where the opportunities are, and that's where we talk about the lower price points to enter. I'm going to share a couple of case studies with you in a little bit. Loans we paid hundreds of dollars for. First mortgages we paid literally hundreds of dollars for. So again, finding these opportunities, and quite frankly, we stumbled on the opportunity 4 years ago when we started. So again, uncovering these and taking advantage of the bank's inability to take advantage. That's where the real value is in playing in this sandbox, so to speak. Higher cap rates, we talked about that, and economies of scale. We're operating basically in 4 states. We've got a crew out of Wisconsin that, depending on what we have to do, if we have to rehab a property, it's a half a day's drive for them to get anywhere pretty much where we're operating. So by being able to kind of concentrate in a geographic area, it really allows you to take advantage of those economies of scale. Okay. Let's get into the fun stuff. Who's interested in seeing how to get, and that's not a misprint, a 742% return on a single note investment? I'm assuming everybody's hands up again as we go into this. It's a case study on a loan modification that we did, and Dane and Michelle will leave their last name out to protect the innocent or the guilty. In Warren, Ohio, we paid $26,000 for their first mortgage. The balance on the mortgage was about $68,000 plus the past due amounts. And the cool thing was the value of the property was only $68,000. So they really weren't upside down on their house. They were, they were about even, with the exception of the arrears that they had, which was about $20-something thousand, to where they had a light at the end of the tunnel they could see. The cool thing was, this was on one of our first trips that my partners and I went on, where I actually got out there, knocked on the door, met Michelle. And I'm fond of saying, every loan that we buy, even if it's a defaulted loan, has a story. There was a person, a homeowner, a family in that house, And the best thing we can do, which the banks never do, is listen to what that story was and see if there's a way to help these folks out of that bad situation. So in this case, Dane was a pool maintenance repair guy in Ohio. When the market turned upside down, of course, people were looking to cut expenses. Unfortunately, pool guys were probably one of the first ones to go. So that's what started them down their path of housing destruction. So they were behind for about 3 years. It was originally a GMAC loan. GMAC sold it to a hedge fund who sold it to us for $26,000. And then the cool thing was, as I'm talking to Michelle, is we found that they could afford the current payment. I mean, their house payment was only $606 a month. They couldn't go rent anything for less than that. So we came up with a plan for her, for them, to be able to start making that payment right away. I really didn't care about the past due. Again, even though it was $20,000, again, if you look at the numbers, it values 68. I paid 26. I had a lot of equity coverage in that deal. So the plan was, and for those of you that have not heard of it, you're going to want to write this down. Hardest hit funds. So if you go to treasury.gov, basically what the hardest hit funds were, it was 7.6 billion dollars that was given to the 18 hardest hit states in the country during the meltdown to help with things like foreclosure avoidance, unemployment assistance for homeowners, and principal write-downs, things of that nature. And so Ohio had a very robust program. So I told Dane and Michelle, I says, here's what we're going to do, guys. Start making your payment. I want you to go on to, here's the website. I want you to go on there and apply for the hardest hit funds. If you qualify, which I think you may, then the state's going to pay me as the lender $25,000 or up to $25,000 to be able to catch your loan current. So they were behind $21,500, I think. And so for them, it was definitely worthwhile. Now the carrot was, I said, if you didn't qualify for it, I'm just going to I'm going to write off that $21,000 like it never happened. So now, worst case scenario, if you do this with me, is that you're going to be sitting back on owing 68 grand without any arrears, and you just start making your payment. So this was a win-win situation for them. So let's see how this kind of played out with the economics of the deal. I collected 6 months of payments, $606 a month for them, so that was $3,600. They did qualify for the hardest hit funds, and actually, what I didn't know was that there was another part of the hardest hit fund. So in this case, we got paid $25,000, which went to the arrears of $21,000, and then we also had $3,600 that we gave them to pay their past due property taxes. So it benefited them even more. And then on top of that, the additional $7,000, the state prepaid 8 months worth of payments, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, and prepaid that for them to help get them out of the hole. So now, just off the bat, remember, guys, I paid $26,000 for this deal. I'm already playing on the house money. I've gotten $35,600 back, and we still have a mortgage to deal with. So now, this is another one you want to write down: FHA 1023 loan. That's one of the best programs that the government actually put together. It's the HUD, Housing and Urban Development Defaulted Homeowner Loan, specifically for them, where all they have to have are 3 ledgered payments after being past due for however long. And as long as there's some other qualifications, FICO score 520 or 550, whatever it is minimum, and no bankruptcy and whatever. There's a couple of qualifications, but as long as they meet that, they'll qualify for that 1023 loan. So we actually got to pay off $57,763 off their refinance. By the way, that loan will pay off up to 96.5% of the current value of the property. So just to do the numbers here for you, the $32,000 or the $25,000 from the hardest hit funds actually amortized their balance down from the $68,000 to roughly about, I think it was about $59,000. So the $57,700 represented the 96.5% of what the balance left on there was. Guys, that's $92,403 received on a $26,000 investment. Do the math. That's a 371% ROI in 6 months, or 742% annualized return. Grand slam, we call that one. I'm sure everybody on this call, everybody on this webinar would love to grab an investment like that. Now, this does not happen on every deal. If you can get this on every, on every, 1 to 2 of every 10 or 12 deals that you do, you're knocking it out of the park. So again, hardest hit funds. Some of the programs are already expended, but it's use it or lose it money until the end of 2017. So just another government program that's for you as an investor to take advantage of, and while helping homeowners. So pretty cool stuff. Okay, Raw Deals home runs. Earlier I was talking about first mortgage liens that we paid hundreds of dollars for. This is what a $20,000 house in Sullivan, Indiana looks like. These are pictures from the BPO or the broker price opinion when we bought the loan. I paid $250 for the first mortgage on this house. Yes, I said $250 for the first mortgage on this house. I didn't do any due diligence. I just bought this thing just to be able to say that I paid more. I paid bar tabs more than I paid for the mortgage on this person's house. So great deal, right? Didn't do too much due diligence. Bought the loan, stuck it in a drawer. And then a couple of months later, figured, okay, what are we going to do with this thing? It's time to start working on this. So let's see what the market's doing over there. Let's see what the value of the property is. Now, if you look at the picture on the left, and I got to figure out a way how to do little highlighters on this next time, you'll see the picture in the middle. That's what they're calling the side shot. The house in the middle of that picture on the left, that's a side shot. And then the picture on the right, that's the front shot of the house. Well, we ordered a new BPO. And this was the seller-provided BPO, by the way. We ordered a new BPO, and we got it back. We had a side shot that looked like that. So now you guys can't tell, but there's water intrusion. I was out at this house after one of the trips after we got the BPO. The floors were separating from the walls. Almost a total tear down. The outside structure was the only thing that was actually reasonably left in the property, or would be left in the property. So we're looking at it as like, man, did a meteor fly into this thing, or did Superman come flying out of it? That's about what happened, right? My little animation, I had to get that in there. Is it the end of the world? Now, at the end of the day, again, as I said, this is a $20,000 property. We would have had to put $15,000 to $20,000 into it to make it worth 20 grand again. As an investor, are you going to do that? Probably not. For us, it would have been easy just to just write off the $250. Again, not a big deal. But what if you paid more for it? Well, we found kind of a way to turn lemons into lemonade. It's one of the properties we're actually in sitting down with one of a good friend of mine who happens to be an investor in our fund. Sitting there, having a soda with him, and I said, what do you think if I can get a corporate sponsor to write a check for this? What do you think? What do you think about fixing the place up and we donate the property to a wounded warrior or disabled veteran out in the area? He's like, you know what? I'd write that check tomorrow. So that kind of got us started down the path of something I'm going to touch on at the end of the presentation on how on turning some of these zeros, because at the end of the day, guys, this house is sitting there and is going to sit there. If I just release that mortgage, that's something that's just going to be torn down in this actually very nice neighborhood of a little town of 6,000 people that probably didn't need to have something like that happen. So it's a way for us to A, give back, and B, take some of these other properties. Again, this is kind of my the bleeding heart side. Let's take some of these zombie properties and put them back into function, and let's why don't we fix them up and give them to guys that can really appreciate and use it. So anyway, a pretty cool way we found of turning lemons into lemonade. Just want to share that one with you. Lender insurance, for those of you on here that are lenders or have bought notes already, can't stress to you enough the importance of having forced place or lender's insurance on your properties if it is a non-performing loan and your homeowner does not have his own insurance. This is a condo that we bought we bought the note on in Canal Winchester, which is a suburb of Columbus. We purchased the non-performing loan in June 2013 for $7,200. The foreclosure was completed just over a year later, this past July in 2014. We got the keys to the property on July 10th. We walked into this. Now, you guys can pretty much see there's water intrusion from the roof. This was a second-story condo. There's black mold growing on top of black mold on top of black mold. This place was absolute destruction. So, as an investor, you sit there, it's like, oh no, what did I get myself into? Well, we had our lender insurance on it. And middle of August, we got a check from the insurance company for $36,000. Remember, guys, we paid $7,200. We got probably a couple of $1,000 in foreclosure fees. So we're into it for, let's say, just under 10,000, or right about $10,000. Went on Craigslist, found a contractor that came in there for roughly about $5,000, ripped out all the walls, stripped everything out down to bare studs, and then we sold the property for $20,000 after that. So that's 20,000 plus 36,000 minus about 15,000 for our acquisition foreclosure, and then our strip out fees to get the place to get it all the mold remediated. We had a nice profit on that. So again, one of the key reasons you always want to have lender insurance on your properties. Always cover your assets. Your assets. All right. Moving right along, how do we improve our successes in this business? It's called RPC, and that stands for right party contact. If I can talk to the homeowner, I can solve their problem. One of the biggest challenges in this part of the business is that these homeowners who, might be 3 years, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, behind on payments, they've trained themselves to be ostriches and put their head in the sand. They know which phone calls not to answer, which letters not to open, what times not to open the doors. So getting a hold of them and getting them, again, conveying that message that, hey, it's Mark, I'm here, I'm your new lender, but I'm here to help you. I'm not here to take your house from you. That's the number one obstacle that we face. If we can talk to them, we can help them solve the problem. So again, if you're getting into this side of the business, or if you're already into it, always door knocks, drive your assets, communicate. It's so important. My partners and I did this from the beginning. We started out once a quarter. We would fly out from all of us live in California. We'd fly out and spend 3 days driving from Ohio into Indiana into Illinois, wherever our assets were, to really get a good feel for what's happening in the neighborhood, and also for knocking on the doors on the ones that that we weren't able to get a hold of, or the servicer wasn't able to get a hold of. So again, nobody's going to be able to communicate your intentions better than you. Although we also use real estate door knockers, or the property preservation companies for $25 or $50. You could have somebody go out there, knock on the door, and deliver a note to the homeowner. But nothing is the same as you going out there and doing it yourself. Or talking to them, and even if you're not out there, I don't want everybody to think you have to go out and visit all of your assets all the time. That's not what this is about. But there definitely is value in knowing the areas you're buying in, and if you do happen to be out there and you're able to knock on the door of a homeowner that you haven't been able to get a hold of, it's the results are amazing. Okay, who wants to see how to get almost any borrower to call you within 24 hours? This is your one amazing takeaway, guys. And we stumbled onto this one. We had a property out and by the way, this is Mark's gold nugget for the day. I usually forget that. We were out in south of Chicago, not South Illinois, Dalton, Illinois, and we had a property that we had literally driven by over 6 months, ourselves and door knockers a dozen times. And every time we knock on the door, we'd see the curtain move, so you knew somebody was in there, but they just absolutely refused to answer the door. So frustrating, because again, it was a nice house. We knew that if we could talk to them, we could help them, right? If I can talk, I can help. So one of my business partners was out there by himself. We said, hey, let's try this. So we printed up these really obnoxious orange stickers and told him to go by the property and stick it on the window, and let's see what happens. So he went out there, and the bottom part's not very important. The top paragraph is the one that's going to guarantee to get you a phone call. So let's read it. Mortgagee has caused on this whatever day a personal inspection to be made of these premises. The inspection did not reveal that the mortgagor or persons lawfully claiming under the mortgagors are presently occupying or will occupy the premises. Therefore, mortgagee, me, the lender, considers these premises abandoned. So our partner put up the sticker, drove around the corner, called us up. He said, I put the sticker on, let's see what happens. He didn't even make it a couple of blocks away, and the phone at the office rings. One of the guys answers the phone, and it's, who the put this step, abandoned step. The guy was going off for a solid 2 minutes, cursing up a storm and just going off. So just waited, let him bleed it all out of there, picked up the phone, and it's like, Mr. Brown, we're so sorry. The real estate agent put the wrong sticker on your window. Actually, they were supposed to put a little note on there. But while I got you on the phone, yep, modified loan 7 days later. We had him on the phone. We were able to talk to him, found out what the problem was able to put him back into a payment that actually worked, and modified successful loan later. So again, if you and regardless of what your model is, because even if you're looking to get the property back, through foreclosure, if you could put something like this on the property and get the homeowner to call you, maybe you can get a deed in lieu of foreclosure. You never know which way it's going to go. A lot of people solving their problem can mean a number of different things. If they're in the house, they want to stay in the house. Obviously, modifying them is the preferred way of going. But if they're not, maybe they're already divorced or left the property. Maybe a deed in lieu is solving the problem. This way, they don't have to worry about that anymore, and they don't have to worry about a deficiency judgment through foreclosure. So solving the problem can take a number of different can wear a number of different hats, so to speak. Okay, moving right along. This is another one. This is another one of our gems. This is the second least expensive note that I purchased. This is what a $7,200 house in Lucedale, Mississippi looks like. This loan we bought for $450 for the first mortgage. And typically when you buy a mortgage note, the file is maybe a quarter of an inch thick. The only documents you get, for all these really the older defaulted notes that are coming through the system don't have like applications or credit or anything like that. You're going to get the original mortgage, a copy of the mortgage, the original note, and a title report. That's typically all that's in there. Well, this collateral file shows up after we bought it, and it's about 2.5 inches thick. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of odd. So I said, let's take a look and see what's going on with this. So I started flipping through the file and stumble on a page from an attorney, and it's addressed to whom it may concern. This is to inform you that Mr. Brown has passed away. There was an insurance policy. How much do we pay and who do we send it to? Yep. The whatever dollar an hour employee that was in charge of looking through files or correspondence at GMAC really blew it on this one. They had a loan that was going to pay off $13,000 or $12,000 and change from a life insurance policy, and nobody bothered to read the letter. They sold it off to a hedge fund who sold it off to me. A hedge fund didn't bother reading it either. Ended up selling it to me for $450. So this was a little bit of a story to it, but I don't want to bore you guys with it. But here's another one we paid $450 for. It ended up taking a year for us to get through it, but we ended up getting a full payoff of $13,600 on that investment. So, and by the way, that's double what the house was even worth. So again, this was another instance of an absolute home run investment on the low end. We kind of one of the important things to understand: the big hedge funds, they don't care about $7,000 houses. They don't care about $50,000 houses. They're buying up Sacramento, California, houses that are $150,000 or more. This low value, low band sandbox that we play in. This is where the real opportunities are. Now, is turning a $450 investment into a $13,000 payday exciting for Blackstone, a $1 trillion hedge fund? No, not at all. But for a mom and pop investor or Mark Gold sitting out here in California, that's I don't even know how many percent return, 1,000% more than that return on my investment. So that's exciting stuff. It's not sexy because it's not big dollar amounts, but it's sexy because it's pretty high ROIs. So again, this is the kind of returns, and these are perfectly suited for the small mom and pop investors at the end of the day. Because here's a deal. Not that I would say go out if you have $500 to spend, don't run out and buy a $500 note. Maybe you're not ready to get into the game yet. But these are the kind of deals you can find out there that have the potential of either being worth zero or the potential of being worth $13,000. Okay, here I want to go through some current. That is a fuzzy picture. I just want to take you through some successes we've just had. Here's one of our Wisconsin Oriota rental properties. We bought this from the bank. You can't tell, but it's actually a very nice house. Smaller house. It's got a full basement. I think this one's probably about 1,200 square feet. We bought it for $32,000. It needed $3,000 in repairs. We sold it for $49,000. So we're into it for $35,000. Sold it for $49,000. Nice return on that. Market value that was with a renter in it. Market value is $55,000 to $60,000. Good deal. Gene Chandler, who's one of Scott Carson's mastermind students and one of our Roadshow alumni. This is one of the deals he got on the roadshow that he went on a year ago. This is in Elkhart, Indiana, which is up in the South Bend area. Great area. We love it. We love Northern Indiana a lot. He bought this one at $6,500. Sold it for $20,950. That's 222% ROI in 1 month. This was just a deal. He was able to get it. He ended up getting a hold of the homeowner, got a deed in lieu, and was able to sell it to a local investor for a huge return. Just, real ROIs, real deals. Here's one more. Here's another Wisconsin REO rental. We bought this one for $42,000. That's about an 1,800 square foot house. Needed repairs of about $4,000. We sold that one for $63,000. Again, another nice quick ROI, and these were done in probably 4 months or less. Again, market value 65 to 70. So for an investor to be able to pick something like this up for 63, that might have $1,000 a month in rent plus an option fee, makes a nice healthy ROI. Especially for somebody if they're using their self-directed IRA or something that they're earning, a 0.5% or 1% in, that's a nice safe return, nice rehab property, and to be able to return get a nice return on it. One more, Gene's Deals. This one's in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is middle of the state. He bought this one for $42,000, sold it for $60,000. Took him about 5 months to get out of this deal and made a nice 43% ROI on this one. So again, what are we talking about here? Again, we've got people on from California, Florida, East Coast, middle of the country, all over the place. The importance of what we learned in the last 4 years really is to take advantage of global opportunities, not just opportunities in your backyard. When we started our fund, our model was to buy non-performing loans in California, Arizona, Nevada. If we stuck to that model, we would have shut down 3.5 years ago. That's where all the big hedge funds want them. That's where all the investors wanted to get their stuff. Who was I to walk in and be able to get any real deals? Not to mention that California non-performing loans are selling for 80 cents on the dollar. Why wouldn't I go Why wouldn't I go to Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, where I can get stuff for 30, 40, 50 cents on the dollar? It just, again, when you look back at those ROIs, those real ROIs that we're all getting, that's the reason why. So you got to get comfortable out of your comfort zone, and that's what we're talking about. Okay, we talked about free houses. These are 2 properties in Chicago that I was at about a little bit over a year ago. I think a year ago, October, actually, because it was weather was starting to get a little bit chilly out there. They're boarded up because they have to be. Abandoned properties have to be, I call it zombie proofed, so that people can't get into them to hurt themselves or smoke crack, probably. Actually, a bunch of the houses, if you've never been in these areas in Chicago, and these areas could be anywhere in Chicago, you'll see some of the houses. Actually, I should add it to the next presentation. Some of the houses will have a red X on them. Red X means that the fire department stays out because they're so unhealthy inside, as far as dilapidated, falling apart, whatever, that if it's on fire, the fire department's supposed to let it burn. These are 100-year-old stone buildings. I mean, the architecture blows me away on these. But they have to stay out and let these things burn because it's unsafe for the firefighters. So these are the houses. Again, we talked about 40,000 demolished properties. There's probably 100,000 of these that are on the list to be demolished because they just don't want them sitting vacant. So what the city of Chicago does is that they have demolition court to where people can go in, and all you have to do is pay, it's anywhere from a couple of $1,000 to $50,000. You have to pay some of the liens and water bills, or water and sewer bills, I think, that were on the properties, and then they're actually stripping the ownership from the previous property owners, and you get the properties that way. So in this particular case, I'm sitting outside these properties. I look in my rearview mirror, and this is why we talk about the importance of knowing where your paper is. And again, this is tongue in cheek, guys. I'm sitting there, and actually you can see the curve of my mirror in the bottom of the picture. I see an entire gang getting arrested right behind me, and here I am, bald-headed Mark sitting in an electric blue Ford Fusion, driving around taking pictures of these properties. In this particular case, these properties were in Lawndale, Illinois, which last year was the most dangerous city in America. Now, again, does that mean that you don't invest in that area? Maybe. Does it mean that some people wouldn't kill it? No pun intended. That was not scripted either. Some people wouldn't kill it, getting some of these properties, fixing them up and turning them into rentals, and also at the same time probably starting to help, turn the neighborhoods around, which we're starting to see out there. So, again, free houses, maybe you don't want them. Free houses, maybe you do want them. It's all about your perspective. So there's lots of those out there, and again, we've taken advantage of some of those. Some of the groups that we work with have taken advantage of a lot of those, and again, just more and more opportunity out there. Here's another one of Gene's deals. Gene is in northern Indiana, so I kind of put a lot of his stuff up on here just to kind of keep it localized into that market for when I'm talking about that market. This one's in Marion, Illinois. He bought that one at 10 grand, sold it a year later for almost $40,000. That's almost a 300% ROI. Again, how does he take it from 10,000 to 40? Making right party contact, finding out, this was another one that I think was a deed in lieu of foreclosure. Got the title, found a local real estate investor that wanted to buy it and either fix it and flip it or do whatever. So, or turn it into a rental, whatever the case may be. And again, that's where those successes are. Here's another one in Marion. Bought that one for 6,500. Sold it for 30. Another $23,000 profit. I don't know how this one. I think he ended up, if I'm not mistaken, I think this one he ended up getting modified on and then sold it as a reperforming loan a year later. All right, let's talk about the roadshow a little bit. Again, the big question is why did over 100 note investors travel over 5,000 miles to look at almost 300 assets with us last year? You're about to see. And again, you've already seen some of the examples of why they're doing it. And what I'm kind of proud to say is that we take students from the educators. We're not educators. We're doers out here. We take the students from the educators that are teaching all the basics of this. And then what we do is take you out there and actually throw you into the fire. When you're sitting in a 4-day workshop or a 5-day workshop and you learn all the lingo and you learn all the things about non-performing notes, same numbers as in any industry, as in any kind of classes or coaching or whatever. 75% of the people are not going to do anything with it. They're going to learn. They're going to sit there. They're going to study. They're going to learn, and they're never going to pull that trigger. Well, we take people out on the road show and we make them pull that trigger because we're showing them what that $50,000 house that you can buy the note for $10,000 is. Is that a good deal or is it not a good deal? Here's the due diligence on it. Here's what you have to look at. Here's what we're looking at. Is this something I would buy? Yes. Is this something I would buy? No. So we're actually taking you out there and putting your knowledge into practice. Day 1 and 2. We traveling around usually in these really cool Mercedes Sprinter vans. We're rolling around like the Secret Service through the neighborhoods. We obviously don't want to be on big buses. A lot of the streets are smaller streets. You can't get those buses through. So we go incognito. Nobody knows who we are. We're just rolling around. Sometimes if it's a vacant property, we'll go out, we'll crawl around the property, sometimes go into the property if we're able to. A lot of these times, if they're vacant properties, there's going to be doors in the back left unlocked. Or the copper goblins have already kind of gone through it. So some will visit, some will be able to go through, some obviously we won't. If it's an owner, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But we spend the first 2 days just driving. So like for instance, we left Chicago for the last Chicago one. We leave at 8:30 in the morning on Saturday morning. We ended up in Indianapolis at about 10 o'clock that night. Well, we covered about 450 miles in that day, looking at 30 different properties, and everywhere from Chicago into northern Indiana, and then heading south slightly west into Indianapolis. Spent the night there, got up the next morning on Sunday, left at about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then we head northwest back into the Chicago area, making it in there about 6 o'clock. So we're covering roughly about 700 miles in the 2 days. Again, looking at properties. We've got big screen TVs in these vans, so normally we're putting up due diligence, going through BPOs, pulling up values. We've got hotspots, so we're doing due diligence. Unfortunately, on one of them, we did 10 of these last year. On one of them, the day of the Belmont Stakes, I was driving while everybody else was enjoying the Belmont Stakes on the TV. So, that's right, that was for the Triple Crown. But we're really maximizing every minute we're out there, trying to put as many eyeballs as we can on as many properties as we can to really get a feel for A, the areas, and B, note specific. If there's some stuff that we're looking at the week before the trip and we know that we want to go crawl around this could be a home run kind of deal. We try to make sure we spend enough time covering on those things. Again, so this kind of came to be from my experience doing this, where we go out, we want to get familiar with the areas. I never heard of Kokomo, Indiana, until my partners and I were driving around and we stumbled into Kokomo. Kokomo, for those of you that don't know, was like the number 2 city behind Detroit that was going to fall off the face of the planet. All auto industry, everything shut down over there, and it was total tailspin into despair in the area. Well, we're out there, we're sitting in the Main Street Cafe, found out talking with the waitresses over there that Chrysler had just opened their largest transmission plant I think in the world anywhere. There in Kokomo, so you could already feel and see. It's like looking at a gray picture and all of a sudden seeing flowers popping up and color coming into it. The city was coming back into life. So we bought some assets there, and now that I know that about Kokomo, which I never would have known on Yahoo News or a little two-liner in the Wall Street Journal, I never would have known that that was a great area to be buying in right now. So now when I get a list of assets to look at, I see stuff in Kokomo, I'm all over that. So that's the value of going around and visiting these neighborhoods and really seeing what's happening in those neighborhoods are. So again, we're teaching the investors, get comfortable on the areas, neighborhoods, and assets. You don't have to drive all your assets all the time. Some people want to if you're in that area, but it's so important to know where you're buying, at least the areas. This is a great one. That's Scott Carson and myself on the right, and that's a gentleman by the name of Gene. Gene, I guess he was looking right at the camera. That was perfect. We pulled up. This is an actual asset for sale by a hedge fund. And we pulled up in front of the house. And again, we didn't own the note, so we really have no right to speak to him. So there was a house for sale 3 houses down from his. His is on the corner. We pull up in front of that. Scott and I get off the van. I'm wearing my obnoxious red, white, and blue stars and stripes cowboy hat. Scott's wearing this equally obnoxious American flag Gilligan hat. And we're talking really loud in front of the house for sale. Oh, here's this house for sale, blah, 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 blah. Oh, there's a nice young man sitting at the corner. Let's go ask him about the neighborhood. So we went up to him and spent the next 15, 20 minutes listening to Gene tell us all about the makeup of the neighborhood and what the values were. Found out he was in that house since 1994. There was a Section 8 across the street there. There was a nice family over there, nice old lady living over there. Little did he know that we were looking to buy his debt. The short of it was one of the attendees on the roadshow, Jim and Donna Perno, who were on that trip, ended up buying this note for $30,000. There was $170,000 first mortgage, and the house was worth $80,000. And you can't see it in the picture, but just to the left of Gene on that ledge, he had his house phone, he had his cell phone, he had his pack of smokes. He was in his office right there. He was going nowhere. This loan was actually in the process of being modified while we were there. They walked into a cash flow. He made his first payment literally 2 weeks after the roadshow, so they walked into a performing loan for a non-performing price. So again, it doesn't happen all the time, but here's the little nuggets that we see all along the way as we're playing in this space. So pretty cool stuff. Day 3, we're in the classroom all day. We're back at the hotel, usually in O'Hare if it's the Chicago trip. And welcome to the War Room. We spend the entire day from about 9 o'clock till about 3, somewhere between 3 and 5, depending on when people are flying out, just going through due diligence, going through everything we've seen, because again, we're going to see anywhere from 25 to 50 properties, depending on how they're grouped together. So we're going to be going through value checks, checking taxes, due diligence, putting together offers on the ones that people want, and there's usually quite a few. Sometimes we'll have a draft to see who's going to get what asset if there's a lot of good ones, and we walk you through collectively as a team how to put in your offers on the first deals here, and then at the end of the day, that week, you're going to end up buying your first asset. So again, a lot of hand-holding, a lot of guidance on what's a good deal, what's a bad deal, and we're really good at what we do, and we love imparting that knowledge on you to get you down the road the right way so you can start making money or start making some great ROIs on your investments. The assets, we normally have the list of assets anywhere from a week to a couple of days before we leave. So our attendees actually get that list. They can start doing their due diligence beforehand if they kind of know what they're doing already. So they kind of formulate which ones might be their favorite ones to look at. Why'd I do this? We kind of put this together as kind of be a complete business in a box. Like I said, even with my experience, the first year out the gate, we had to figure out who did what. Who do I use for a BPO? Who do I use for an O&E report? I never heard of an O&E report, so we had to learn this whole system. By building this community that we're doing of roadies, we're building JV partners. We're building this little family of people that partner together along with us. Not that all the deals are like that, but we'll partner with our roadies also. We're building a network of capital partners where we can all partake in buying these great deals and partnering up on a lot of these great deals. So what we did is that we created a complete business in a box. You're going to get a complete list of note sellers that we deal with. You're going to find out about the 12 plus exit strategies with analytics. You're going to get a Rolodex of all the service providers with updates. Some services are great some days, next day they're horrible. And because of the volume that all of us do, we keep you up to date on who's good and who you want to lose. Note capital providers there is, again, depending on how big your aspirations are. Some people might want to buy 10 notes in a year. Some people might want to buy 2 notes in a year. Some people might want to raise a fund and go out and and buy 1,000 notes. Who knows? There's note capital providers out there that lend on these portfolios as well. So we hook you up with those guys also. We give you the software program that manages it all. It's called NoteWorks. We developed it, so you get that for free for a year. So again, you're getting all the tools so that you're coming out the gate swinging, not figuring the first year, what do I do? How do I do it? You're equipped right out the gate for success. What's next? We do, and thanks for sticking with me, guys. We're coming down to the end over here in a few. Monthly conference calls or webinars to cover questions. Again, we stay involved with our roadies. As deals come up, we're going to be putting them out to the roadies to see if people want to partner up, or it might just be a tape for people to go out and buy. Again, you'll be in our elite partner group that gets first look at all of our exclusive purchase opportunities. So again, we're building this community of investors that work together. Here's one more. This is actually a pretty cool one. Mike and Nick Bridges bought an asset in Waukegan off one of the road shows. This deal was, that's right, it was one last June. The short sale was in process on this. This was pretty cool. They paid $17.5 for it, closed, and then they called up the real estate agent. Real estate agent said, no, that deal's closed. That deal's sold. So Mike, who's the dad, he's like, oh my God, gold ripped me off. I just got ripped off for $17,000. I just paid $17,000 for a worthless note. Little did he know that it was the real estate agent said it was sold, but it wasn't closed because the short sale lender never approved the short sale. The short sale lender was now Mike and Nick Bridges, who approved it for $40,000 and closed it 2 weeks after they bought it. So that was a pretty cool one. On my the Note.Guru website, we have a testimonial from Mike. It's pretty amusing. He goes into detail on that, so you should check that one out. So again, they're not all like this, guys. I'm giving you some great home runs. There's some stuff that you're going to, again, at the end of the day, I think I said this early, when you're buying notes, there's 2 factors you really care about. If you're comfortable with the value and you're comfortable with what's on title and you buy it at the right price, you're not going to get hurt in this business. Sure, there's things that pop up that might delay, what your best laid plan is, but that just means that your ROI probably won't be as high as maybe you initially thought. But as long as you're buying right, you'll never get hurt in this business, especially with first mortgages. So our next road show, and we're only doing one in Chicago and Indy, even though that's our hottest market, we've gotten really busy on this end. So we've got the last one coming up. It's May 16th to 18th. It's $2,500. It includes hotels for the 3 nights, coach fees. You can bring a second person for $500. We only have 2 seats left on this, so if anybody's interested, ping me right after the presentation, and we'll get you on that one. And again, all these deals I was showing you for the last 20, 30 minutes is all the kind of deals you can expect to see in this marketplace. This is where we're killing it out in that neck of the woods, guys. It really is that great. If you happen to be in the Chicago area and you don't need the hotels in Chicago, which this past weekend we had a couple of people sign up, we'll knock $300 off because we don't have to pay for your hotels in Chicago. So if you are in the Chicago market, just know you can take another $300 off that price. All right. Lastly, I want to close with this. We have an event coming together. It's out here in California, but what I'd like to do, I'm going to give you some contact information after this. This is an event that I've put together. Again, being the Navy veteran, I really look for ways to help our veterans in need, and I think I came up with an absolute home run. So I just want to take 2 minutes and tell you what we put together that's coming up in 2015 on September 11th. We put together the 9/11 Memorial Distressed Debt and Private Lending Symposium. For those of you that have been to either Noteworthy or Paper Source or the American Association of Private Lenders, it's an event that's going to be like that, except bringing together the private lending, crowdfunding, distressed debt, and real estate investment communities all in one spot. And we're going to be benefiting the Gary Sinise Foundation. We actually have a house that we're going to be donating, and actually Gary Sinise Foundation is helping us. We're still trying to confirm if Gary will be there or not. He just got picked up for Criminal Minds new show. So depending on his schedule with that, he'll either be there or won't be there. We're also helping the houseforheroes.org. That's a 501c3 that takes homeless vets off the street and puts them in temporary shelter, at least to get them off the street. So a couple of amazing organizations that we're helping out. And the cool thing about it is that we're holding this event on the USS Iowa, which is a famous World War II battleship in the port of Los Angeles. So we're tenting off the whole back of the ship under the big 16-inch guns, and we're going to be doing this for a couple of days. The night of 9/11, 9/11 is on that Friday. We have a benefit concert that we're doing on the dock. Again, trying to get the Lieutenant Dan Band to be the band for that, and it's just going to be an amazing special day. We have Congressman Adam Schiff, who's going to be doing a keynote speech. I've got a 3-star admiral that's going to be coming down. So it's a way for the investors at our level to come together and do what the big banks have been doing. We've all seen in the news with Operation Homefront, which is amazing. B of A donates homes, Wells Fargo's donating homes. Well, we can do the same thing with these, like the one I showed you on there, these little homes that are just, eyesores in the neighborhoods. Collectively, we can come together, fix these things up. And again, we've got investors, we've got sponsors that are coming in to pay for all this stuff. We could just come together as a community and do that. So what I want to ask everybody to do, if you're on Facebook, find us. Here's what you would put in. First of all, you can follow the Roadshow. Just put in Shadow Inventory Roadshow on Facebook and like the page. And then Battleship 911. It's also battleship911.com. Like the page, just follow and help us spread the word. Because again, we're just trying to build the community awareness on what we're doing. I think we're going to have a ridiculous amount of media coverage on this, but right now we're just trying to get the word out there. And again, I'm an open networker on LinkedIn and Facebook, so follow my antics. We're all over the place with these road shows and everything else we're doing, and we like sharing the opportunities and sharing the news with everybody. So questions. I'm gonna have to switch screens here for a second. All right. So let's see. Let me go down. Let me see if we got questions first of all. Yeah, we got some questions. All right, let's see. So we got a couple of highs. Hello. Kathy asks, would that have had the same outcome if you had the file sent to Richmond Monroe to review first? Would they have told you? Kathy, if you can specify which one we were talking about. I'm not sure which asset you were talking about on that one. If you pop that one in, just let me know. Also, yeah, great point. We also have some folks listening in on the call to the listening to become fund investors, so that you're not confused. So again, sorry for hitting this one last. I had a little bit of a technical glitch where I couldn't see questions until the end here. So if you guys are interested in being fund investors, welcome, and we can follow up with you after that. It's difficult for me to travel. Can I purchase notes without going on the roadshow? Yeah, you certainly can, although you cannot purchase roadshow assets. Those are for the ones that are going on the actual roadshow. But if you send me an email, we can put you on our list to be able to see that stuff. Kathy, the insurance check. No. So Kathy, let me go back to that question. Kathy had asked on the Canal Winchester deal that we had the insurance problem. Would that have had the same outcome if we had the file sent to Richmond Monroe to review first? Richmond Monroe, all they review is collateral. Collateral being, is the mortgage complete and legal? Is the note complete and legal? Or all the documents for me to become the new lender complete and legal? That's the only thing that they verify and the only thing that they check. So this still would have come through, which in my case was a home run for me. So I'm happy it went through. So Richmond Monroe wouldn't have been any help on that. Okay, let me delete a couple of these. Somebody was asking on the roadshow as far as food. We host one nice dinner in Chicago. You're going to be treated to some of Chicago's finest deep dish pizza. And if Dan Zatofsky is on here listening, that would be at Lou Malnati's. Other than that, it's we're at the hotels, just eating. We'll stop at lunch. Usually not fast food, but we'll stop on the way, so it's very inexpensive as far as food. And then we'll host usually probably Sunday night. We'll get in early enough. We'll host a nice dinner for that, and then so that's it. Hold on. Is the hotel on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday? Yes, the hotel is included on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay, got on the webinar late. Will there be a recording available to watch again? Yes, there will be. I will send out the link to everybody on the GoToWebinar list, so that will be available. If you got an O&E, if you get O&E insurance, do you have to fix up the property or can you just sell it as is? So O&E insurance, okay, so we're talking about two different things. If you're talking about lender insurance, I think you're referring to lender insurance or forced place insurance. You do not have to fix up the property. In this case, the property was so demolished that probably somebody would have walked in and given us probably $5,000 for it. So by us spending the $5,000, we were able to sell it for $20,000. But we didn't have to. So you can certainly, if you got a huge payout or enough to cover your investment from your insurance, absolutely you can just sell it as is. You're not required to do anything. Where will be the next roadshow? So I think that was probably asked before. We covered that. So that's May 16th through the 18th in Chicago. You fly into O'Hare Friday night. We also host a happy hour Friday night if you're there in time, about 7 o'clock. We leave bright and early, 8:30 on Saturday morning, and then we'll be returning Sunday night to that hotel, staying in another hotel in Indianapolis on Saturday night. Thanks for clarifying. You're welcome, Noreen. Can a buyer make as much as $100,000 with the inventory at that time? Can a buyer make as much as $100,000 with the inventory at that time? I think I'm understanding the question, and then in parentheses it says 16 to 18. I'm assuming you're meaning if you bought 16 to 18 assets, can you make $100,000 in profit? Yeah, you certainly can. We've had, let me think, the biggest, again, typically new investors, although we've had a couple of seasoned guys that just want to get the experience of driving around. Ideally, if you can come to the table with, let's say, $250,000 in that market, with average values being, let's say, 50 to 60, let's say between $50 and $75,000, you can make $100,000 over a period of time. What that period of time is determines, and I don't know if you're talking about 16 to 18 months or 16 to 18 assets. So let me go through here and see if they're clarifying. Wait, hold on the trip of May 16th. Oh, absolutely. Oh, okay. So that question, can somebody make $100,000 on that trip? Absolutely. We actually on Saturday drove a bunch of the properties from one of the hedge funds we're getting assets from. There's some absolute home runs out there, guys. Some of the properties, if you follow me on Facebook, you'll be able to see them. We were posting up videos. We were posting up pictures. There was a $400,000 house on a golf course about 20 minutes east. No, maybe not 20 minutes. Maybe about 15 minutes east of O'Hare going towards Lake Michigan. That was incredible condition. Out here in California, it was $1 million plus house. This is probably a 4,000 square foot house on the golf course. The mortgage on it was $200,000, and we could buy that one for probably somewhere between 50 and 75% of what was owed on it. So those are the kind of deals that we were seeing. There's commercial deals that we have on the roadshow, small commercial. There's some low end stuff. If you come with enough, let me put it this way: if you come with enough capital, making $100,000 is not an issue on this one. We have amazing assets. Okay, hold on. Institutional investors on purchasing performing notes. How much face do you have to have to approach them? Institutional investors. I think you're asking to go to institutional investors to buy performing notes. How much face do you know what, Stephen, if you don't mind, re-ask that question. I'm not understanding you. Okay, that one we answered. That we answered. Does the forced place insurance only cover damages to the property? Yes. So think about it. Forced place insurance or lender insurance is insuring the lender. So it's insuring you for whatever you're covering it for. You know, again, let's go back to my scenario. I could have just insured myself for the $7,200 that I paid for it. In my case, I covered it for the value of the property, which was $36,000. Maybe it was $50,000. I don't know what the actual value of the property was, but we got that amount. So if we only insured it for what we bought it for, we would have gotten a check for $7,200, which still I would have gotten my capital out. But in this case, we ended up getting the property value. So you'll have options on how much to cover, but it'll never be more than what the value of the property is. Hope that makes sense. Sorry. Oh, Ken, roadshow after the Chicago event. We're doing New Jersey in July. And actually, if you go to note.guru, which will be the last slide you see, note.guru has has a schedule. We're only doing 2 more after Chicago this year. There's just too much going on. The third one is to be determined. It might be Detroit. It might be Michigan. Detroit being a part of it, of course. That's another great opportunity out there. But we'll see when we get a little bit closer. Who sells lender insurance? There's a couple of different companies. Most of the servicers that we use now are covering it, but it's a company called OSC. Unless you're buying a lot of loans, you're not going to go directly to OSC. You'll just go through FCI or Land Home, whichever servicers you're using. Okay. Do you guys have crowdfunding for NPNs? I started going down that path. Never continued, but that's something that we have in the works. So stay tuned. Don't know if you covered this, but do you have any suggestions on raising funds from private investors on funding deals? Yeah, that's not enough time to talk about that on here. If you ping me separately, we've got some resources we can send you to find out more about that. And that's obviously something that we cover extensively while we're traveling on the roadshow as well. Sell. So let's go back to Steve. So institutional investors on purchasing performing notes, how much face do you have to approach them? So in other words, I'm going to assume, Steve, that you're talking about, oh, wait, here's yours again. If we have several performing notes, how much face value to approach a bigger investor like $500,000 or $1 million? There's institutional guys that'll buy onesie twosies, $100,000 or less. So again, the more you have face value, the higher the pool value is for them to buy it, but you can get out of deals as little as one-offs. Oops, I hope I didn't delete the wrong one there. When you create a pool of performing notes to lay them off, how much to lay them off? How much fee do you need to accumulate? Yeah, it's not making sense, Steve. You got to type a little bit slower and just lay it out for me. I'm not understanding that. Kathy, will deal with that offline. Institution events. Yes, there's actually only 2 seats left on the van for Chicago. So, and I haven't checked email. I don't know if anybody sent it in yet. Let's see. All right. So I think that's most of the questions. I'm going to go back to the questions in a second. Let me just go back to this here. Give you guys the last pop that. So note.guru. So www.note.guru, not .com. It's just .guru. That's the website for the roadshow. We've got videos on there. You can see some cool videos from past roadshows. It's got the current roadshow schedule, videos and more. We've got a cool ROI calculator and and a bunch of other resources on there that you'd be able to tap into. Some of the stuff that we were talking about is on there. So just peruse that. Shoot me an email. My email is on the website there as well. Always accessible by email. And then again, if you are interested in this roadshow, ping me right away. And let's see. And again, find us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Okay, Steve, again, I have $512,000 worth of first mortgage that come from a self-directed IRA market and want to lay them off with an institutional investor. What discount would I expect? Steven, shoot me an email offline. Lay them off on the. I mean, that could be taken a lot of different ways. Are you looking to sell them? Are you looking to sell a partial? There's a lot of different scenarios. So maybe you and I need to just talk about this one after. I was a little bit more involved than doing it on the tail end here. So again, actually, let me put my. So I didn't have it on there. I'm going to send this out to everybody. My email address. I just put it in the chat section. So feel free to shoot me an email offline, and we can talk more about that. All right. Well, again, thanks everybody for joining us, and I will send out an email sometime this evening with the link to the recording on this. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to stick around to answer any last minute questions, but I'm going to stop the recording and I'll just stick around. But other than that, have a great day and be safe out there.